Welcome to the Space Coast Real Estate Show. I am your host, Roofer Rob. Along with me, my awesome co-host, Jesse Hall from Space Coast Podcast and eXp Realty. Also, John Maselli from
Movement Mortgage.
And, of course, Michelle Carpenter.
Inspiring Home Staging and Redesign.
I like that intro a lot better.
You did really well, Rob. I like that. And, yeah, as Rob mentioned, this is Jesse. Welcome to another Space Coast Real Estate Show episode. Today, we are going to venture into the world of
Selling. It's a seller's market out there.
Yeah, and are you doing it right? Are you leaving money on the table? Are you taking the wrong course of action as far as, getting an agent or studying the market or whatever may have you? Have you been caught in one of those weird things where people are maybe not having a conventional kind of offer because now they're writing you love letters and all kinds of different things we're seeing in the industry, like, please accept my offer, and here's like this tragic letter accompanying it. And I'm seeing all kinds of things. What are you guys seeing out there?
Are you getting pre-qualified for your next purchase? Since you're selling, you got to have somewhere to live.
That's a great question. Have you already talked with a financing professional? Because you're going to have some proceeds, but what's that going to look like? Is it going to be 10, 20% down? What kind of financing are you going to do? You're going to do balloons? Like, there's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But before all that, though, you have to make sure you have your house staged properly to sell.
Well, we have to
have an expert realtor to list it.
And therein lies the beginning of the checklist. Michelle, you have experience with talking to some homeowners. Do you like to get in there before the photographer, before the realtor, or at the same time? Like, so, because I like to do presentations like all together. Like, here's my photographer. He's going to go around and document some photos. I got the other photographer doing aerials. Here, sign this real quick, so we get that out of the way, and then let's talk about how we're going to market your home. Right? Isn't that a great listening presentation?
Fantastic. Short and sweet.
With most people, that would probably be very overwhelming. Like, what are all these people? Like, I don't even, like, we got to decide things. For me, I'm very matter of fact, and I could really do that. If you have complete trust in me, I will get your home sold. I will get it for top dollar in the shortest amount of time. But you got to relinquish all control, and that's another thing.
You got to listen.
Don't try to micromanage the professionals. They do this all the time. They've been very successful. Your opportunity as a seller is to sit back, relax, and just collect the money at closing, right? What do you guys think?
Absolutely. And don't use one of those online sell your house quick, because then you're not getting top dollar for your house. I mean, even if you went to a local RIA club, a real estate investor association, you'd get more money from a cash buyer than doing one of those programs.
So let's bring that up. When to sell retail, on the MLS with an agent, with all the bells and whistles, or is there a time to maybe look at an institutional buyer or a local wholesaler, somebody who can marry you with a investor, someone who has who's ready to help pay you off the mortgage and give you money for the cash balance, so you can walk free and clear from a home that may not be insured, maybe needs a new roof, maybe has foundation issues, things that you are not prepared to handle yourself. There is and we could talk about that too.
I think you should always sell for top dollar, because you could talk to John, and there's plenty of available options to get money to do what you need to do to get your house prepared by having an interior design, look at it, and tell you what you need to do.
Exactly.
There's no reason to leave money on the table.
Precisely.
There's just not.
Right. It's always worth getting an opinion, as far as looking at, having a listing inspection. A lot of realtors offer that, and then what are some of the things that need to be done, and then getting a contractor to come out, take a look at all those things, get a quote, and then find some kind of financing and decide.
Dan with TP does a lot of my pre-listing inspections, and it's not really a 4-point, it's not really a win-mit, it's more of just if there's something wrong, you need to know about it as a seller, so it's not a surprise, because those buyers are bringing their own inspector. And that inspector's like, oh, you got fungus around, the wood trim of your door. Happens everywhere in Florida, by the way. I get that one all the time. But
pre-listing inspections are a smart move for realtors.
Just don't be surprised.
Right. Yes.
That way you know exactly what it is before the public does, right?
Yep.
As part of our staging consultations, whether it's a vacant house or an occupied house, we do what we call kind of a mini home inspection, going through and looking at, you know, all of our team has some kind of background or knowledge in construction, and we're, you know, knowledgeable, and we look at some of those different things, you know, what could be done, or just point out things. I was at a consultation today, and I was like, there's a little spot on the roof. You might need to have that checked out, and just, you know, different things like that. We go in with what we call a buyer's eye for the sellers, and kind of look at some of those things.
Yeah, because the buyer will nickel and dime you to
exactly,
death.
and I'd rather get rid of
like a bunch of little things wrong. They'll try to shave a whole bunch off the
something
sale
that's
price.
a $50 fix. They're gonna want $5,000 off.
And I think that's a valid point. And just to let the listener and the viewer know today, we're gonna go like, you know, with the segments that we have available. We got about 4 segments, and I think the last segment what we'll do is kind of just round it out as far as what kind of offers, how to read a contract, some line items that you want to be familiar with. But before that, I think what's valuable in this first segment is what is the reason to sell? Because if you're just making a parallel move, just going into a newer home, or just maybe just want to cash out some equity and then, you know, or maybe downsize, or maybe you got to relocate. So if you do, of course, have to leave for because of a job position, for instance, you know, we're in a very military friendly community, and we see a lot of that. People will only come to the area for 2 years and then be forced to go somewhere else on assignment. But if somebody's thinking about it today, let's say, for instance, they have a ton of equity in the home. Should they sell today, or are we going to tell them to wait, or should they have sold yesterday?
That's a tough question, because if you sell today, you'll get top dollar, but you're also going to be buying a top dollar.
Right.
But the interest rate's lower.
But how else are you going to get that equity out of that home if you don't sell it? Because right now you could take a winning, right?
Seek professional help.
Actually,
in your opinion, what would you do? Let's just say you owe like $50,000 on a mortgage. Your home has a value of like say $300,000. Would you cash out to realize that $250,000 potential net?
I would keep the house, take an equity line of credit, use that to buy houses and flip houses, so that way you still have your main house and you're using the equity. But some people aren't down to be that risky.
But that's a really good alternative for people who maybe they don't really know if an equity line of credit is right for them. You know, getting a HELOC, it's a second mortgage essentially, right? So now you're paying on your first balance, and now you got whatever you borrowed off your equity. Some people aren't prepared for that, but if you are willing to take that risk, let's just say there's a beautiful quadplex down the street. And please tell me if you have one available. I'll buy it. I'll buy it from you 10 times. So there are instances where somebody could make a big move, or maybe open a business, or maybe send a kid to college with that home equity line of credit. So, yeah, a refi is huge. Maybe consolidate loans.
Yeah, there's so many options though. For that, you definitely want to talk to a mortgage professional like John, because that's there's so many different options that you'd have to be what's best for that person's situation.
Well, I see a lot of people pulling their equity out of their home and paying off bills, because right now money's cheap. So
exactly, it's a great time to borrow.
Car loans, student loans, high interest credit card debt, and just and converting a 30 to a 15. And still paying less, So there's really some good options if you have a lot of debt that's accumulated. But the thing you got to watch out for is because a lot of times you wipe out all that debt, and then you have a lot of leeway, and then
you acquire it again,
and then you get that debt back. So
something came up because I know, John, you're doing refis right now like it's nobody's business.
Yeah, crazy.
What is the most creative thing somebody could do in a refi? If they do, for instance, a cash out, they just want to take the cash and just spend it however they want, get that vacation, get that remodel, or I don't even know if this is a thing, but could they take some of those proceeds, like say they're taking a little bit of equity to spend on things. So now you get them from whatever loan term that they had 10 years ago, which I'm sure is much sweeter of a deal nowadays, right? I mean, you could probably reduce a couple points, but could you also take some of that equity out and maybe even pay down further to even a lower APR? Can you do that from the the proceeds?
Well, I mean, that wouldn't be a cash out. That would be a refinance with that'd be a term type of thing. You'd want to reduce your term.
Right.
I mean, pulling equity out to put it back into the house isn't really helping you much.
So what would you advise?
I would advise to refi into a shorter term.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're talking about just going from 30 to 15
or
and then
10 or 20
paying off
or
those
whatever.
high debts.
That's great.
Yeah.
And to do that is doing like a structured loan or like a balloon or something like that, or
No,
a
I
bridge
mean,
loan or anything.
Right now, I mean, fixed is the way to go.
Fixed.
I
Just
mean,
straight up fixed. No.
If fixed is the way to go, if you plan to stay in the property for a long period of time, if it's going to be short term, then maybe an ARM is the way to go.
Yeah. And are you seeing lots of ARMs? Because I remember they were very popular before the
Yeah.
previous crash.
From that crash, they have a lot of stigma attached to them.
Because
But
and
they
I thought
are
it
great
I thought they were
products.
such a good product. But here's the difference.
It's fixed for a period of time for like
yeah,
5
if you're
years.
if you're getting
10
5 or
years,
7
10.
year term,
Might be
people
good
forgot that after the 5 years, it
Balloons.
just goes to wherever the market is. So you secure a super low rate for those first 5 years. Again, it was an investor vehicle.
Yeah.
The wrong people got into it because they were
Yeah.
very attracted to the low APR, but they forgot
And
that
they
they
got
need to
bad advice.
refi before that 5 year, 7 year, or 10 year realization.
Yep.
That was the curse. It's the same thing with reverse mortgages.
Well, back then too, also the property values dropped tremendously, so there's no more equity left to refinance. those.
Everybody had. I remember it clear as day because I was right in the middle of it. I just started my career. I was right there in the heart of it all. Lee County, Cape Coral, Fort Myers,
Yeah.
Lehigh Acres.
Here.
Yeah. Titusville. Well, actually, like they said, like between Cape Coral, Titusville, and Las Vegas, those were the 3 biggest hit markets.
Yep.
Ground zero. Like I'm talking,
I was
a
buying-
home that was 300,000 was worth 150,000 overnight.
Yeah.
was
People were
buying-
so upside down.
Yep.
We got our friend in the studio nodding like, it
I was
was
buying
tragic.
4-bedroom houses in Titusville for $35,000. I bought 4 of them for $35,000. $35,000, put 15 into them, and rented them out. I mean, it was
Basic, easy.
the market was a different place.
So and what that offered, even though it was so tragic and it trickled to every part of our economy, you know, from the dollar to oil prices. I mean, and nothing was safe.
Well, we have another adjustment coming. I mean, it's
Right.
if you look at real estate, it's a roller coaster. It goes up
Sure.
and down every
It's
7
cyclic.
years.
Yeah.
Except the last one, I think, is going to go a little bit longer. But I mean,
Well,
it has
it's-
to reset eventually.
It's 12 years from 2009, which was
Oh,
you know, and 2009 was already kind of on the latter side, the other side of that peak of just defaults and foreclosures.
Well,
it was
we
so
have
bad.
all these. We have all these. The foreclosure moratorium going on right now. So when that breaks
Right.
loose, there's going to be a huge wave of foreclosures. But I really think that that's going to fill the vacuum of lower end houses that we have no inventory of at all.
And that's a great point. Is if you know that you're a little upside down and you know you may not be able to make the next mortgage payment because your renter hasn't paid your rent in 6 months, and you're getting frustrated as a landlord, you didn't think you weren't going to get a rent for so long, even though somebody's still living in there, because it has enabled some renters to be like a little complacent, like, well, you can't kick me out, So is now the time to sell? And do we want to answer that question maybe after the break? Or what kind of?
It depends on your situation, really. I mean, there is no right or wrong in real estate. It's whatever's best for your situation at that time.
Exactly.
Real estate is the best investment. However, you don't get to pick when you get your money out. You pull your money out when you can, when the
Right.
market dictates that you can. And
Yep.
that's it. You don't get to. It's great. It's amazing, but
Right.
you have to play by the market's rules.
Yeah, no kidding. So let's continue when we come back from break about we'll just kind of clean that up about when the right time to sell is, and then of course, and then the next segment we'll spend on first steps. You decided now's the time. You got to downsize, relocate, upsize. There's kids on the way. You have an aging parent that needs to move in, whatever that looks like, and you gotta sell. What to do first, and we'll hear more about that when we return. And don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Roofer Rob here with RRCA Roofing and Reconstruction Contractors of America. We are an insurance restoration specialist. What is that, and how is that important? Well, let me tell you, in Florida, what we find is most homeowners sign up for their insurance, pay a premium, and then when they file a claim, the insurance company tries to pay them a minimum. Not cool. We specialize in using the software that the insurance companies use and holding them accountable to the policy that they sold you and ensuring that you get a premium roof for your premium. Check out rooferrob.com and download my free report on the Florida roofing secrets that the insurance companies don't want you to know. In that report, I'll give you all of the secrets on how you can be successful and get a premium roof for the premium that you spend. Or you can call me direct at 321-368-1881.
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com.
Space Coast Podcast.
Talk hard!
Welcome back to Space Coast Real Estate Show. Roofer Rob here, and we have got a great topic. We're going into the beginning steps of selling your house here at the Space Coast Podcast. I'll have to make sure we give them a shout out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Space Coast Podcast Studios, the best place.
The number one
your
studio.
Podcast. That's right.
In the universe.
Check us out. Spotify, Apple, and anywhere else you listen to the podcast. Space Coast Podcast Network, featuring shows like the Space Coast Real Estate Show. Yeah. And the second segment, let's start with Michelle. We kind of kicked it around earlier on about some first steps. Of course, most often it's going to be the agent that introduces you to the client, but these homeowners, they could also invite you first and see exactly what they need to keep or not keep, or what they should pack or not pack in order to show the home. So they could have a lot of discussions with you before they even really decide that selling is right. What would you suggest, and then what does that conversation look like?
So the conversation, it starts just kind of finding out a lot of times what is their next step, because if they're downsizing, then maybe they've got a lot of furniture that we need to start looking at. What can they get rid of, or what do they know they don't want to take into the new home? And looking at, decluttering, which is part of that. Sometimes they have too much furniture in the current home that's not going to fit in the smaller home. So looking at that potentially.
And you just brought up a really good point, because if they are downsizing, they don't want to bring that huge sectional, and it fits really, really good in that existing living room. So maybe there is some, maybe some things are going to stay. So maybe you offer the home with furniture optional.
Right. A lot of homes do have that as an option. Just if it's the house is occupied, of course, just looking at, decluttering, depersonalizing.
Right.
Always tell my clients, thanks to our mortgage guys that are closing homes pretty quickly, they're moving. So you might as well go ahead and get started now, packing things away and start looking at some of those, the personal items and things that they can live without for, 60 days or, whatever, until they get settled into their new place. So it's just kind of doing themselves a favor. And I think buyers like to see that, oh, hey, they've already started packing, that they're serious. They want to move. So they like that sees that they can close pretty quickly.
It's always awkward when you show a home and it looks like they just vacated. Like, the stove is still hot, the dishwasher's running, they still got, they didn't really clean all the taco meat from dinner off the counter. It's really tough to feel like, wow, this is inviting. Wow, I could imagine myself here. If they still see everything, like all these remnants of you, they could smell, the cat litter box. They could, and it's just uninviting. Like that's, and so important like that. But I do like that idea of having that consult What do you?
Right.
What's staying? What's
Absolutely.
going?
Right. Yeah. Consultation. Allow a couple hours for us to come in. I tell my realtors, let me be your bad guy for a few days. Have those hard conversations with the clients, and just sometimes there's a lot of things that the realtor has to go over: the contract, the comps, all of those kind of things that you guys are responsible for.
Right.
Let us come in and have some of those conversations about what needs to be done to market the home. Right. A home is your biggest investment, and that's some things that if it's listed or if it's presented properly. For anybody that has marketing background, once you put the for sale sign or you sign that contract to list the home, it's no longer your home. It's a product on the market, just like a vehicle or a piece of clothing on the rack. So it becomes you've got to polish it. You've got to make sure that it's pristine.
For sellers to get that wrapped
It
around
is.
their head.
It's no longer your house. You're just kind of waiting and holding on to it, taking care of it until the next buyer comes.
And that goes in for and again, I was going to talk about accepting offers, but that goes to show that it's time to turn off the emotions and start taking everything personal, because there's going to be people and there's going to be inspectors and they're going to say, hey, you got mold or something else that's like so taboo and so it's almost insulting. Like, did you just say I have fungus? Don't take offense to these things, because not only are they common, but these are objective findings. Like, nobody says that you were a dirty person or that you couldn't have a good, there's things that happens. We have all kinds of insects. We have burrowing insects. We have damaging insects like termites. But there's tons of them. I mean, there's wasps and or even honey. We've seen hives in people's attics that are just crazy.
WDO.
Yeah.
Wood destroying organisms.
And they come in all kinds of sizes. And here in Florida, we have the most species on Earth. So, but it could be a squirrel that made a nest in the attic. Again, you had no idea there was so don't be offended by the findings. But certainly in that pre-listing inspection, you'll have all those. And so you get the guys, with noises in the attic or some other exterminator. Beachside, they're really good, Beachside will take care of that, because I've seen it all, especially on the beach. I mean, it's okay. You have a mouse. You have the woodpeckers. I see them in my townhomes. They're beating the hell out of the soffit. just digging their way in.
Get in there.
And it's not a bad idea to have Michelle come out first, get your home inspection out of the way, because if you have an inspection done by a reputable company, when you go to sell the house, there are some buyers that'll just use that. So it's probably not a bad idea to start with that, because then your house is ready for the realtor and ready to be.
We don't actually do the home inspection. We look at, suspicious signs or things like that are kind of noteworthy. Hey, you want to get a contractor or an inspector to come out and take a look at it. We found mold in houses before. We found, and then even just little updates. Hey, I've got my paint deck here. A fresh coat of paint is like the cheapest way to improve your house, and to bring up some updates.
Speaking of that, what are some cool trends? Like, what color should they paint the door if they're going to paint? Like, let's talk about that. Like, cosmetically, what would you advise? Like, short, easy tips.
Easy tips. The interior walls, just a nice neutral beige. I've got, I like Sherwin-Williams. That's what I was trained with. So accessible beige.
It's so good. Yeah.
Agreeable gray are my two go-to colors. Agreeable gray. It does have some brown undertones, so it's not such that gray, because gray is a tricky color. It can turn purple, it can turn blue,
I love the blue accent.
Yes. But as far as like door colors, we live in Florida. Of course, you have to look at the exterior, the paint for the stucco or whatever. But I like kind of a soft greenish turquoise blue color. Is really pretty.
Is that what's trending though? But is that what buyers want?
It is. In Florida, I think you can't look nationwide, because every region and state of the United States is so different with what's popular.
Right.
But as we get into the spring and things, yes, the blues and greens are still very popular.
Blues and greens for your front door.
Calming.
And you think
welcoming.
you think if they're going to do the interior, just really the living room and kitchen, or
as far as painting?
Yeah, or the master bedroom only, or what do you think?
At least the entire main living area, so everything flows. If everything's the same color, I kind of use the analogy of a GPS, that every time your eye has to change color, texture, patterns, floor type, your brain recalculates, like our GPS is when we make a wrong turn or something.
Right.
And many times our brains can only handle so much, or a buyer can only handle so much. So every time they're having to recalculate, the more times they recalculate, sometimes then they shut down. And we don't know, Jesse's number of recalculations may be different than John's.
Sure.
And so we want to eliminate as many times that they may have to recalculate and their brain just gets overwhelmed. So painting the entire main living area the same color does help reduce, and it makes it feel bigger. It just flows nicely. If they can go ahead and do the secondary, the master bedroom and bathrooms, that would be recommended for sure. But at least the main living areas, kitchen, dining, living, that all flow together.
And how soon in the consult before you let them know that there's a lender before they sell, that maybe because they got to go somewhere.
Right.
So it'd be cool if the consultation just went, from one conversation to the other. Like, oh, by the way, because honestly, all these touch-ups could take weeks before they're ready to market it.
Right.
So before we have the conversation of what price we're thinking and how we're going to market it, what kind of buyer are we going to try to get in front of. There are these consultations, so that's great. So for me, by the time I'm ready, because if you say go, I got photographers on standby. Like people, I mean, we're gonna get this thing on the market as quick as possible. We're gonna decide on the yard. Everything's gonna happen within, super quickly because we can't wait. We need inventory now. Like no rush on your part, but
you do want to
take
list
some of these practical steps.
And you don't want to list it too soon if the home's not ready.
Yeah,
if it's not prepared, because I think as a realtor, if it's the home's not prepared.
Right.
Where you've brought us in, our recommendations and an inspector, if that's the case. If you rush the home to be put on the market, I feel like it's almost a disservice to the client because they could be leaving money on the table, like you said.
And
you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Absolutely.
That's a golden rule. Thank you, Rob. That's very important.
Very, very true.
Yeah. So certainly don't rush. I saw a listing come on the market. Guess what? There's a tenant there. That's fine. Tenants. They got to live somewhere while you're trying to sell it, right? But they were not allowing showings for 3 weeks.
Had a 3-year lease.
Yeah, they're not allowing showings till the 21st. It just went live on the market like a couple days ago, and it's like no showings till 3/21. I'm like, how the heck are you going to sell something that people can't see?
That's a great.
Maybe just wait till 3/21 when it does become available to be seen.
They're just milking it to get buyers. The agent is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a way around it, but why 3 weeks? That's kind of arbitrary, and that seems like super long to put on the market and not allow any showings. Anyway, so when I see stuff like that, I'm like, maybe they were rushed. Maybe they didn't. Maybe that was one of a case of somebody who maybe, I don't want to say ill-advised, but I would say that maybe I just don't know the reasoning. So maybe there is some really good logic behind it.
Right.
It's just hard for me to figure it out right now. But that seems like something that probably wouldn't sell right away compared to the competition.
Right. Well, and people may be worried about, the market's going to crash before long. I better hurry up and get it listed, because it could happen tomorrow. So, but I don't think that that's necessarily a reason to get it on the market before it's ready.
You know what else I saw is all of a sudden, all of these like really, really, really bad properties are coming to the market. Like things, I mean, they're boarded up windows. I mean, it's like, here, take it. I mean, I think now like people are just dumping anything because people are so desperate, and they're getting like full market value for it.
Else
like, please take this problem, cash only. What's that?
What I see a lot is,
what's that?
From the realtors, they, 15 years ago we had all those hurricanes, and now, the roofs are at end of life, so they're having trouble insuring them. So a lot of sellers are going to have to be calling Rob because, I see that a lot all the time.
Well, I'll tell you, having worked with a lot of buyers and sellers equally, and John, you have a lot of experience as well. It's a tough conversation to say, you got to replace your HVAC. You got to put some money into this place
before.
You got to
put a new roof on your house, or you're not going to be able to sell it.
Well, and then they show you the door, and it's hard to put, lipstick on a pig. It's just like, and I'm not into blowing smoke. Our time is way too important. Both my clients or a potential client, my own certainly. So you got to respect that. And if I walk into an appointment and I look, listen, truthfully, you're going to need a cash buyer that hates money, because what you think it's worth and what it's really worth and what the market supports and probably how it's also going to appraise. You know, I mean, because we could all list it at a fantasy number, but that appraiser is going to really put you in reality check when we get under contract. Because even if the buyer wants to even pay more than it's worth, that appraiser is going to like pump the brakes, go, no, it's not worth that much. I'm sorry, you guys can't go forward unless you agree on a lower term. Again, it's going to suck for the seller. The buyer probably won't mind.
Appraisals are coming in light now, too.
Are they really?
They are. I've noticed a real trend.
Mm-hmm.
So the appraisals are coming in lower?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much 6-month data, but they use 12 months, so they're not really.
Well, staging actually helps with the appraisals too. People don't realize that, and the inspection. You know, once we have done everything we can to prepare the home, but the home inspectors and the appraisals, they're human too. You know, they're supposed to be kind of unbiased, but they are human. And when a home is presented and prepared and shows nicely, it's going to have a better home inspection, because we've kind of done a lot of that on the front end, but it also it's a perception, and then the appraiser is going to look at it and see it added value, because it's going to present like it's a more well-maintained home. Again, because we've exactly. Well, even because we've gone through and we've already taken care of a lot of those issues, and so it does add value with the staging.
Well, I think we cleared that up. I really like that conversation. When we come back, I'm going to open up with my own kind of tips and tricks as far as preparing to sell. So once they kind of do meet with the agent, there's going to be some things that I like to include to help you be in a better position when you sell and when we're attracting buyers. And we'll have more of that when we return. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, my name is John Maselli with Movement Mortgage, Beachside, Indy Atlantic. Movement Mortgage is a faith-based organization, and our mission statement is as follows. We exist to love and value people by leading a movement of change in industries, corporate culture, and communities. To me, this mirrors my own business philosophy. My goal is to help people finance purchases or refinance current properties stress-free and at great terms. Help people, and everything else follows. By the way, if you have equity tied up in your house, the only way to get it out is to refinance. Pull that equity out and pay off high-interest debt or build a pool. My office is at 225 Fifth Ave, Suite 4, Indy Atlantic. Call me anytime at 321-248-6245 or visit my website, loanapplyapprove.com, for more information or apply to qualify for a mortgage today.
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com.
Space Coast Podcast.
Talk hard!
Welcome back to the Space Coast Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Roofer Rubb. We're back on the discussion of selling your house, and Jesse's got the realtor side of things.
I do. So I want to open up this segment for all of those, again, sellers who are thinking now they've had perhaps a consultation, right? So now they've already had Michelle in the home. They know what to do with all the clutter. They know what to do with all the stuff that's not going with them. They've been educated on places that they can perhaps donate some goods or whatever else. They got to find a storage. They got to find a moving company. So we're having all these conversations. They're painting the house. The door's turquoise. It's beautiful. Now, and perhaps now they've also contacted John. He's now instructed them what they're going to do. Perhaps John has maybe even introduced them to a title company to provide like a little net sheet of what they could look like as the proceeds come in, and then I would most likely, in conjunction with John, go ahead and mirror that net sheet, as far as the comps and everything else. Make sure that listing price is looking strong and looking reasonable. Because again, we don't want to live in fantasy world, okay? Because again, the appraisers, buyers, the market itself is going to correct us. Other agents are going to laugh at me. Other neighbors are going to laugh at you. And we don't want to be a joke, right? We want to come in strong at market value so we get the most eyes on our property. Now, what's that mean as well? Well, how do you be the best seller? Well, I'll tell you what. If you can find that survey, the title company is going to need it to close. If you already have it existing, have that handy, because not only are we going to need it when the time comes, when we're doing title search and all that other things, we get it clear to close, but you're also going to want to maybe have it just on the table, So some of these really quick, fun things that I like the seller to provide for when we start having showings and people are actually touring the home, or an accurate survey, a recent survey, or just the last survey you had done when you bought the home. If you have any other inspections or warranties, if you have like a termite bond or anything else that you have, certainly present those. If you updated your kitchen, you have all new appliances, and they're all going to convey the manuals, the warranties for all of these appliances, the receipts, all those things that you can accumulate. Give the new owner of the property as much knowledge as available, and all those cool little tips and tricks. When does the trash come? What's the preferred energy? Because here it's FPL, but other places around Florida, I think there's like 99 markets or something, 99 different energy providers. So find out who is going to provide your electric, who you're going to pay for water, and how to get that hooked up. So all these different things, maybe even like an introduction to like the neighbor, tell people about the neighborhood, tell people about how many kids or whatever else, anything that you can include for the buyer to get the most, again, disclose. Those are 3 rules in real estate. So tell people like, oh, there's, a kid who's hearing impaired. So we all got to be careful with what's going on with him. Or there's the bus stop for the kids is right across the street, or perhaps it's right in front of your house. These kind of things are really huge. What's the response for fire department? Do you have those records? Perhaps police was even summoned. So how much of a response time for those kind of things? All these little things help. The more you could collect and demonstrate that you have pride of ownership, that you have kept accurate records, and you've kept all the manuals and everything's organized, I'm telling you, that's the sweetest thing for any buyer to walk in and see.
Yep.
What do you guys think I'm missing?
I absolutely agree. When I sold my house, I had what was called the document drawer.
The document drawer.
And I had everything, like all the termite inspection stuff in there, and all of the, the lawn maintenance sprayer guy.
Yeah, your pest guy, your lawn guy.
So, and then I also I wrote a note to the new buyers and said, "Welcome home." And I said, "Here's all Here's all the codes. Here's the smart home features. The thermostat, how you log into it, and the automatic garage thing." So
because a lot of things are automated too. Like, what's the code? Like, what's that push pad to get into?
Yeah.
Because we have transponders now. You have a gate transponder, for some communities. Then you have the garage transponder. Maybe you have 3 doors. Now you have 3 transponders. It gets a little carried away. And as a new buyer, they may be overwhelmed. Like, well, who's the pool guy? Well, who's going to mow our lawn? Unless the HOA takes care of it.
And the funny thing is, too, since he bought the house, it was like a week and a half ago, I've seen him out like 4 times already. We've already been like drinking beers together and hanging out. He was at the Monkey Bar. We had some cocktails.
High-fiving.
So he moved over here, and he's glad to be, where he is.
In your instance, I mean, where your home is, Indian Atlantic is very, very, very extremely, I mean, I think everybody would love to be there, so it's very desirable. A lot of people, I mean, just because it's like, what's unique about Indian Atlantic, and there's going to be other shows where we dive into like each little community that we have here on the Space Coast. But Indian Atlantic is one of the first places I moved here when I relocated from South Florida. Lived over by Wickham Park because I was going to BCC for a minute. Then I moved over to FIT because I met some friends that I worked with, and they were going to FIT, so we lived across the street from FIT. And then I think the third address I had was a duplex over in the Atlantic, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was my first address in the Atlantic too.
It's so cool. Franklin Street, right up the street from Groove Tube. We had Petrillo's. When I moved in, the original Long Doggers wasn't even there. It was still a bank.
Yeah.
So I watched that whole, this whole area grow, and I think it's a mile by a mile squared, and it hasn't been incorporated for a long time. I think it's a really cool gem. Then you have what they call SoFi, south of Fifth Ave, or SoFa, I think they call it, and that regards like all the community up until like Melbourne Beach. Actually, I think there's I think there's even some unincorporated Brevard before you get to Melbourne Beach proper, and that's real spotty on the beach side too. So it's you gotta get to know your place as a buyer. But we're gonna talk about that next episode. As a seller, what other cool things could they do? Because I love those. Those ideas were great. A personal letter, how charming. Yeah.
Paint sample chips or paint samples. Keeping those
paint samples, yes.
The little extra.
Yeah, and I think sellers should just, don't throw away that extra box of flooring or the barrel tiles, because you're not going to be able to match that color.
Yeah.
Like clay tiles are like the worst things to match. So all great points. The extra pavers. Yeah, and I think and all the service professionals, because guess what? Nobody really knows that property as well as the current pool guy, the current landscape guy, and these are going to be your friends too. These are going to be the people who recommend things, who introduce you to their neighbors, and they're going to be your welcoming committee. So for you to introduce the next buyer to these people, I think is a really just it's just an upstanding kind of. That really is like full service,
right.
and that's again being a full service real estate agent myself. I know John and Rob as well, having provided full service. This is what we would demand of ourselves, and certainly when we're with buyers, it always impresses the buyers. So take it from somebody who works with a lot of buyers. When you do it right, then everything clicks. You got the staging, you got the color palette, everything looks great. Everything's been super cleaned. You've gotten the cleaners in there. You got the professional photographers. Everything looks great. Twilight photos. Everything looks super. And now we go to market. We go to market, and in this market, the house has 20 showings the first day, and you get 11 offers. One is 20% below asking. Do you accept,
no way,
decline, or counter?
Even though still counter,
right? Or is that would that be upsetting? 20% below asking? Do you think is that like an insult?
Some sellers will be insulted and reject.
Yeah,
you should never take it.
One
personally.
of the three options.
Right. Well, certainly don't take it personally, but some people just throw that out there. Maybe that's all they could afford. So don't get offensive. Maybe they're just trying to level up without
And some sellers think they don't have money if they're. They can't afford this house. Yeah, that's a. I hear that a lot.
And let's talk about the other side of that. A lot of offers. By the way, as a buyer, you better have a pre-qual when you or a proof of funds if you're paying cash when you make an offer. As a seller, why is it important to choose a local lender, even though they've been with Wells Fargo for 30 years and they got the best rate we promise, and they're pre-qualified and it's the best terms ever. As a seller. If you're representing a seller, and John, you have experience. I've experience with sellers. Do you like the local lender when you represent a seller, or do you like the commercial lender as a seller?
The local lender is going to have probably a good rapport with a lot of the local realtors, and also too, they're going to know about flood certificates. They're going to know what flood zones are. They're going to know all of the local nuances of the properties. They're going to understand that stuff better than the banks do.
Because as a local lender, you're not only a lender, but you're the neighbor. You're the professional that knows that market.
Yep.
So
I live here.
Right. So 20% may be low, but if somebody gives me an asking offer with a commercial lender and somebody gives me $5,000 below asking with a local lender, I'm always advising the seller to take the local lender, even though, but it's $5,000. Trust me.
Yep.
That commercial lender, we may not even get to closing. So here's more of a sure thing with somebody we know. We could get belly to belly. If they
Yep.
upset you, you walk into their office and you could throw something at them.
That's why we have the
If it's-
Movement Mortgage Loan Rescue Program. So.
Ooh, I love that. Well, quickly plug that for people who don't know.
Yeah, so here's a great example. I had a young lady. She had an offer on a house. They went through the whole process, and she got denied on the loan for foreclosure that wasn't even hers 3 days before closing. Lost her deposit, lost all of her inspection money, lost all of her, appraisal money. Turned around, found another property. We just closed. We're closing on that property on Tuesday.
Excellent.
On Thursday.
I love feel-good stories. When we come back, we're going to tighten it all up, summarize it, and package this thing up for all of our listeners, viewers. Thanks so much for listening. Don't go anywhere. We're going to return with more Space Coast Real Estate Show as soon as we come back from these messages. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, Michelle Carpenter with Inspiring Home Staging and Redesign. We are Brevard County's premier home staging team, founded in 2013. You may ask, why stage your home or listing in a seller's market? Well, let me tell you, staged homes not only sell for 86% faster, but for 17% higher price. We have services for vacant, occupied, and luxury home staging. The definition of home staging is the professional service of preparing homes for sale in a way to appeal to potential buyers that generates a higher sale price. Our mission is faith, family, and community. Your home is your biggest investment, so stage yours today to get a higher price. Contact the team that inspires at 321-806-6543.
Welcome back to the Space Coast Real Estate Show. Roofer Rob here, and before the break we were talking about offers and what do you do if you get a 20% below asking price. Well, as a rule of thumb, it's taught that if your first offer does not insult the person, then you didn't offer low enough. And a lot of people think
Unless
that
you're
way.
the seller.
Yeah. So you should never take offense to it. You should always just take it as a grain of salt. If you were buying the house, would you offer a low price? Like, come on, that's just you should never take it personally.
Right.
It's business.
And that's a really good mention there, and we could segue into that because the next episode we will discover everything buyers need to know. But you will after you're home, and sometimes you have to do both at the same time. Once you're under contract, well, now somebody's moving into your place in 45 days. You have 45 days to find a property. You got to get the inspections. You got to get the financing. You got to do
30 days if you call me.
That's right. Moving Mortgage for that super fast close. The fastest clear to close on the East. So here's the thing. When you now accept a contract, and let's be honest, a lot of offers are coming in cash, over asking, proof of funds is there, but let's just say, how do you choose from two cash offers? It's really kind of tough. A lot of really competitive offers will have no concessions. So some people may give you, well, here's $10,000 over asking, but I'm counting that $10,000 back, or whatever the limit is. FHA, I think you're allowed, a certain amount. VA, only a certain amount. So
6, 4, and 3. Conventional 3,
Mhm.
VA is 4, and FHA is 6.
So you're able to get the next percentage.
Yeah.
Right. So let's just say someone's FHA. They give you 6% over because they want that seller rebate. That means that at closing, you're not keeping that full amount. You're keeping asking, and then everything over that is going towards the buyer's expenses, prepaids, and closing costs. There's a lot of different ways that we accommodate FHA clients because it's 3.5% down. And a lot of times if they're qualifying for an FHA, it's because they have a low credit score. They probably don't have a whole lot of down payment, so they're going to need assistance in ways of getting seller rebates. Plus, they're going to have to borrow and grovel, to their employer or their family members, for anything
So
anything
that
more.
3.5% has to come from the borrower. So you can't use seller concessions for those funds.
Right.
So
and
that's
and
important
and
to
let's talk
remember.
about some popular concessions. What have you seen?
I mean, so, on the higher end loans, you can get more because your closing costs are going to be more, of course. So,
Right.
in VA loans, since there's no down payment, almost every VA loan I've ever done, the veteran gets a check back at the closing table, to cover their deposit, and they're basically no money down.
Well, and that's a singular product that the VA offers but you have to be a disabled vet, 100% disabled vet.
Well, no, you have to be a veteran.
So I'm talking about the zero down like nothing down.
No, it's
Out of
every
pocket.
veteron.
Nope.
That's
So-
every veteran.
Every VA
Yeah,
loan.
I thought you had to be a disabled vet
No, if you're disabled, then you're exempt from the funding fee.
and
But-
property taxes.
And the funding fee gets lumped into the loan, so that's above the
Gotcha.
right. So that's financed into the loan. You pay that over the course of the loan. So
Nice. Okay, so that's just wrapped up.
yeah,
Just like
but
taxes and
it's
insurance.
it's 3.5%. So it's a good
Right.
amount of money. So if you're exempt,
Well, especially on a $300,000 property, that's nearly $18,000.
yeah,
Yeah.
And you, as a seller, you shouldn't take offense to that either, because it's in selling a home nowadays, buyers are using every bit of their income to get into the house. That's
Right.
why it's so important to stage it and make sure that
Right.
it's move-in ready, because they're using every penny they have to get into the house. They don't have money for
You're
blinds.
taking some of my talking points for the next show. No.
The problem with seller concessions is that if you try to go too high in the seller concessions and the house doesn't appraise, now you're going to have a negotiation at the end
Right.
of it because the
Well, you got to meet in the middle. Either you
Yeah,
got to
the-
come out of pocket with cash, or the seller just has to eat it. Like, okay, well, I guess I have to sell it at appraised value.
yep.
We had a property recently that we staged in Cocoa that was sold. Well, it's went under contract for $12,000 over list price, and it even appraised for $12,000 over list price. It was an investor property, but with the good job that they did, the great job that they did with the remodels and renovations plus the staging, it really added the value to that. So they were a little worried about the appraisal.
That could get you your 5 or 6 or 9 grand
Exactly.
you need. So
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
important.
It did.
Absolutely.
And the question is, a lot of times with the market being so hot right now, well, I don't need to stage it because it's going to sell fast. Well, it's going to sell fast, but don't forget, in my commercial, I talked about the fact that the staged properties do sell for like 17% higher price. So as a seller, if your agent doesn't know a stager or doesn't recommend a stager, please, it's up to you, to also take care of yourself sometimes if you don't have an agent that recommends that. You can always give us a call and we can take care of that consultation. And we can do, the occupied or vacant properties,
Right.
and whatever their needs are. And we tailor it, as far as, based on what their needs are currently in the property, to get ready to list it, to sell, and then also whatever their needs are for the future, moving forward.
Certainly.
So.
We're about at that 53rd minute. Roofer Rob, any other closing remarks?
Well, if you have a roof inspection, say you go to sell your house and they tell you that your roof is old, you should have a roof inspection, because I'm working with someone now who was getting ready to list his house. I went and did the inspection. We got the insurance to cover a full replacement.
Wow.
He came out of pocket for $1,000 for a new roof, new gutters, and now he's getting ready to sell it for way more. So
Way more. It's
Way
got a new
more.
roof. Everybody wants a new roof, by the way.
Nice,
Yep.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest question. How old is the roof?
It's the first
Um,
question.
Exactly. How old is the roof? How old is the HVAC? Two most expensive things, right? A dryer. You get a scratch and dent washer dryer for $200-300. That's not the thing to worry about. Don't be like, I'm going to buy this house because of the washer dryer. Like, first of all, don't fall in love with appliances, because sometimes the realtor forgets to exclude them, and then they take them. And then you're like, where are my washer and dryer? Oops. And then it's like a whole thing. Don't get caught up in that. Know exactly what you're selling, what you're trying to convey. Usually if it's glued, nailed, or somehow like permanently attached, like ceiling fans we're talking about, those nice votives or anything else, the sconces, everything else you did to the house. Draperies, exactly.
Wasp nests.
Those stay.
No, take that and put it up under your next home soffit. Take those wasps with you. So there's so for sellers, don't try to take the chandelier. I mean, or if you do, just disclose it or take it down before photos and everything else. Otherwise, it's going to be like false advertising, and you're going to have liabilities and all kinds of weird stuff.
Part of the staging we also do is curb appeal. So if you've got a pink flamingo in the front yard, take it down.
You don't add 3 more?
No.
You paint it gray with white legs.
The cranes.
That's excellent. John, any other last remarks? You just sold a house. What is there anything that you would have done differently, or that you would have loved to see from or you bought a house too? So anything from like a buyer standpoint?
Well, no, I didn't buy.
Oh, you didn't? You're renting?
No.
Where are you living?
So I got married.
That's right. I was at your wedding.
You were at my wedding.
Yeah, I remember that part.
So I had 2 of everything: 2 couches, 2 houses, 2.
That's right.
4 couches, 15 TVs.
So she actually let you move in finally with her?
Yeah, she did.
That's awesome.
Nice. Her house had a pool, so we decided to go.
Well, yeah, to keep hers then.
Smart.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Smart. That's smart.
And Michelle, anything else to mention? I think we covered a lot.
Yeah.
So we really hope that you got something out of this. Watch it twice in case you missed something. I know we went over a lot of topics really fast. You can expect more of that because there's a round table and we have a lot to share. So we really hope you got
to say.
What?
Don't forget.
What?
Movement Mortgage Seller's Advantage.
I love that last minute plug. Everybody else, we're on YouTube, so you can see the video. So make sure you subscribe and don't miss another episode. Click that bell. For all those who are listening to audio, know that we do have a video version of this as well if you want to see our pretty faces, and you could always check us out. But certainly if you are listening to Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else, click that subscribe or follow button, whatever that looks like. So again, you get notified when we drop a new episode. And we're going to try to bring something every week to you. So keep an eye out, and until next time, do we have a tagline yet?
See you next week.
See you next week. I like it. Take care, guys.
Keep it simple.